I walked into that restaurant with my mangy dog and was humiliated in front of everyone, but they didn't know who I really was. Hours later, I returned in a limousine, and the silence in the dining room said it all. Subscribe to our channel now and discover how a simple act of revenge silenced those who humiliated me. The Mayfair restaurant gleamed like a rare jewel on Fifth Avenue, the financial heart of New York City. With its imposing glass and marble facade, the establishment boasted 5 stars and a select clientele of business people, celebrities, and politicians who paraded their expensive suits and glittering jewelry. On that Friday night, the crowd was as heavy as always, with reservations made weeks in advance. Christine Morgan, owner of the Mayfair, circulated among the tables with the elegance of a queen. At 55, she maintained impeccable posture, and her brown hair was always in a perfect bun. Known for her relentless demands, she had transformed the restaurant into one of the most exclusive in the city in just 5 years. Her success was the fruit of determination, but also of a rigidity that bordered on cruelty when it came to maintaining the standards of excellence of her establishment. Renee, that table in the corner, still hasn't received their appetizers. Fix that now, she ordered the maitre d', while discreetly adjusting the pearl necklace that adorned her neck. It was then that the main door opened, bringing in a figure who completely clashed with the environment. A man of approximately 50 years, wearing faded denim pants, a simple plaid shirt, and worn leather boots, timidly entered the restaurant. His face, marked by the sun, betrayed years of working outdoors. At his side was a medium-sized dog, visibly neglected, with dull fur and some patches suggesting skin problems. "Mr. Nestor, I was told you wanted to speak with me," said the man to the receptionist, who stared at him with a mixture of shock and disapproval. "My name is Samuel Adams. I'm an organic coffee producer from the Hudson Valley region." The receptionist maintained a safe distance, as if fearing some kind of contamination. "Sir, I'm afraid there must be some mistake. This establishment doesn't allow animals, and furthermore," he paused, examining Samuel from head to toe, "we work exclusively with reservations." "But I have a reservation. I spoke with a Dr. Paul Matthews. He said he was interested in my specialty coffee production and arranged to meet here at 8 o'clock, Samuel explained, while stroking the head of the dog, who seemed restless in the new environment. The buzz in the dining room diminished considerably. Customers observed the unusual scene, some with expressions of disgust, others with mocking smiles. A couple near the entrance stood up and asked to change tables, claiming they didn't want to dine near that. Christine, who had noticed the commotion, approached with firm steps. "May I know what's happening here?" she asked, not disguising the distaste in her voice. "This person says he has a reservation with one of our clients, ma'am," explained the receptionist, "and he brought this animal." Christine examined Samuel with the same look she would use to evaluate an unwanted stain on her Persian rug. "Sir, this is a high-standard establishment. We don't allow people without proper attire, much less animals," she declared without bothering to lower her voice. "I ask you to leave immediately." Samuel, embarrassed, tried to explain. "Ma'am, I came straight from the farm because Dr. Matthews said it was urgent. I didn't have time to change my clothes, and loyal here he'll stay quiet, I promise, he's gentle." Some discreet laughter echoed through the hall. An executive commented loudly enough to be heard, "And he named that thing Loyal when it looks more like a wet rat." More laughter. Samuel's face reddened, but he maintained his composure. "Dr. Paul Matthews is an important investor," he insisted. "He wants to learn about my coffee before closing a big contract with cooperatives in the region. If you could just call him." "I'm not going to bother an important client because of this," Christine cut him off. "Renee, please escort the gentleman to the exit and make sure that animal doesn't touch anything." The security guard approached, putting his hand on Samuel's shoulder, which he removed with a sharp movement. "You don't need to push me. I'm going," he said, with what dignity he had left. Before turning, he looked directly into Christine's eyes. "You'll regret treating me this way." For a moment, something in Samuel's gaze made Christine hesitate. There was an unusual firmness for someone in his position, but she quickly composed herself. "They're all the same," she commented to the maitre d', as she watched Samuel and Loyal leave the restaurant. They think they can enter anywhere just because they've managed to save a few pennies selling lettuce at the farmer's market. The night continued normally at the Mayfair. The incident with the shabbily dressed man and his dog became just an anecdote to entertain the clients. Christine even used the story to reinforce the exclusivity of her establishment during a conversation with a food critic who was dining there. What no one in the restaurant could imagine was that, at that exact moment, Samuel Adams was in his car parked a few meters away, making a phone call that would forever change the fate of the Mayfair and its proud owner. "Hello, Dr. Matthews? This is Samuel." "Yes, the same one. Look, we won't be able to meet tonight as planned. I had a setback at the restaurant you suggested." 3 days after the incident, the Mayfair was living its usual routine. Christine Morgan personally supervised the decoration for the charity event that would take place that night, one of the most important occasions in the New York social calendar. The guest list included influential business people, politicians, and celebrities, all willing to pay small fortunes for a dinner whose profit would be partially destined to an NGO for Amazon rainforest protection, the kind of cause that conferred status and cleansed the consciences of the elite. "The floral arrangements are too simple, Monica. I asked for rare orchids, not these common flowers," complained Christine to the decorator, who was trying to explain the difficulty of finding exotic flowers at that time of year. The maitre d' approached, interrupting the discussion. "Ms. Morgan, there's a limousine stopping in front of the restaurant. It seems to be someone important." Christine adjusted her dress and smiled, anticipating the arrival of some early VIP guest. Perhaps the governor or that soap opera actor who had confirmed his attendance. Images of good publicity on social media were already passing through her mind. The main door opened, and 2 men in suits entered first with a professional posture that revealed them to be private security. Then a middle-aged man crossed the threshold, wearing an impeccably tailored Italian suit, shiny leather shoes, and a watch that even from a distance was evidently a piece of extremely high value. At his side, a medium-sized dog walked elegantly, with shiny fur and a collar that appeared to be made of worked leather with gold details. The animal was visibly well treated, with a healthy appearance and impeccable behavior. Christine narrowed her eyes, trying to identify the illustrious visitor. There was something familiar about him, but she couldn't quite place it. She approached, with her best commercial smile. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the Mayfair. I'm afraid we're not yet open to the public, but if you're here for tonight's charity event..." The man interrupted her with a subtle gesture. "Ms. Christine Morgan, isn't it?" he asked in a polite but cold tone. "Yes, that's me. Do we know each other from somewhere?" An enigmatic smile appeared on the man's face. "We met 3 days ago when you kindly asked me to leave your establishment along with my dog, which at the time you called that thing." Christine's blood ran cold. The penny finally dropped. "Samuel?" she murmured, incredulous. "Samuel Adams, president of Adams Agribusiness Group, to be more precise," he responded, now with a voice loaded with authority. "And this is Loyal, who's much more presentable today, don't you think?" Silence took over the room. The employees who were watching the scene remained static, not knowing how to react. Christine tried to maintain her composure, but her face had lost its color. "Mr. Adams, there was a terrible misunderstanding the other day. If you'll allow me to explain..." "There's nothing to explain, Ms. Morgan," Samuel cut her off. "You made your policy regarding people who don't fit your standard." What was it again? Ah, yes, high standard, very clear." Carl, the manager, quickly approached, trying to mediate the situation. "Mr. Adams, it's an honor to have you in our establishment. Please allow me to offer our best table and a bottle of our most exclusive wine, compliments of the house." Samuel smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "That reminds me, Carl, that I came here to discuss business. Are you aware that my group supplies premium meat to various restaurants in New York, including yours, correct?" The manager nodded nervously. "Yes, sir, and I must say that the quality of the products is incomparable. Our clients always praise the tenderness and flavor of the meat." "Good to know," replied Samuel, taking his phone from his pocket. "Unfortunately, I need to inform you that I will be canceling our supply contract, effective immediately." Carl's face paled. But sir, our event tonight. We have 200 confirmed guests and the menu has already been planned with your products. That is truly regrettable, said Samuel, feigning concern. Perhaps Ms. Morgan can explain to the guests that the Mayfair doesn't do business with suppliers that don't meet the establishment's high standards. Christine stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. Mr. Adams, certainly we can resolve this in another way. It was an error in judgment. On my part, I admit, but there's no need to harm a charity event. Samuel looked at her with an expression that mixed amusement and contempt. Charity. Interesting how charity always emerges when self-interests are at stake, he commented, while stroking Loyal's head. You know, Miss Morgan, I grew up on a small farm in upstate New York. My father worked from sunup to sundown to support our family, and even so, we were treated like second-class citizens when we went to the city. He paused, looking around the restaurant. I built my empire from nothing, with honest work and respect for everyone, regardless of their origin or appearance. Today, the Adams Group employs more than 5,000 people and owns the largest network of certified organic farms in the country. But you know what never changed? The way people like you look at people like me when we're not wearing expensive clothes. At that moment, the restaurant door opened again. A man of approximately 60 years, wearing an elegant suit, entered accompanied by 2 assistants. Samuel, I finally found you, said the newcomer, approaching to greet Adams with a hug. I tried calling you several times. Paul, glad you made it, replied Samuel with a genuine smile this time. I'm just resolving a small business matter. Christine immediately recognized Paul Matthews, one of the biggest investors in American agribusiness and an influential figure in New York business circles. The same Paul that Samuel had mentioned 3 days earlier. Dr. Matthews, it's a pleasure to welcome you to our restaurant, she said, trying to sound natural. You're always welcome here. Paul gave a confused look to Christine and then to Samuel. You already know each other. Oh yes, replied Samuel with irony in his voice. Ms. Morgan and I had a memorable encounter a few days ago. In fact, it was she who prevented our business meeting here. Paul frowned. What do you mean? Remember when I told you I had a setback and couldn't meet you here? Explained Samuel. Well, I was barred at the entrance because, according to the owner, my appearance and loyals didn't meet the standards of the establishment. Paul's face transformed into a mask of indignation. Is this true? He asked, turning to Christine. Christine Morgan felt the ground disappearing beneath her feet. The presence of Paul Matthews, one of the most influential men in American agribusiness, witnessing her humiliation, was the final blow to her dignity. Her face alternated between paleness and blushing as she tried to formulate a coherent response. The silence in the restaurant was oppressive, with all the employees and the few clients who were making preparations for that night's event observing the scene, frozen. Dr. Matthews, there was a misunderstanding, she stammered, passing her trembling hands through her perfectly arranged hair. Mr. Adams arrived without a confirmed reservation, with completely inappropriate attire for our establishment and an animal in questionable conditions. Our policies are clear regarding— Spare me the excuses, Christine, interrupted Paul with visible irritation. His face, normally cordial at social events, now showed a calculated coldness. I've known Samuel for more than 20 years. He's one of the largest organic coffee producers in the country and a visionary in sustainable development. And you prevented him from entering because he wasn't wearing an Italian suit. Carl, the manager, quickly approached, sweat running down his forehead. His job and reputation were at stake, and he knew it. Mr. Matthews, I can assure you that this doesn't reflect the values of the Mayfair. If we can compensate in some way— his voice trembled slightly as he glanced sideways at Christine, silently pleading for help. Samuel raised his hand, silencing the manager with an elegant gesture. The same man who days ago had been treated as an intruder now commanded the environment with the presence of a maestro. You know what's deeply ironic, Dr. Matthews, he said, with a calmness that contrasted with the palpable tension in the air. His voice, firm and educated, echoed through the hall. I came here that day to discuss the proposal to supply premium organic coffee to the restaurant chain that your company is setting up. A contract that would be worth, if I'm not mistaken," he paused, mentally consulting the numbers, "about 12 million a year." Christine's breathing became heavier. 12 million per year. The amount was equivalent to almost half of the Mayfair's annual revenue. Paul shook his head, disgusted, his eyes normally calculating like those of any successful businessman now revealed genuine disappointment. "And besides the coffee, we were about to close the organic meat supply contract for all the restaurants in the group," he added, looking directly at Christine. His eyes seemed to pierce the woman's soul. "Including the Mayfair, which would be our model establishment in New York after the acquisition." The revelation fell like a bomb. One of the waiters let a tray slip that shattered on the floor. No one moved to clean it up. Christine paled even more, understanding the magnitude of the error she had made. It wasn't just a contract, it was the entire future of the restaurant. "The Mayfair that would be bought by your group?" she asked, her voice almost disappearing. For a moment, she felt her legs might give way. "It would have been," replied Paul, emphasizing the verb tense with cruel precision. "But now, I'm seriously reconsidering whether this establishment reflects the values we want to promote in our network. Prejudice and arrogance certainly aren't part of our corporate philosophy." Samuel smiled discreetly while stroking Loyal, who remained sitting obediently at his side. The contrast between the mangy animal from 3 days ago and the elegant dog now was as dramatic as the transformation of his owner. "I came here today for 2 purposes," announced Samuel, with a voice clear enough for all present to hear. The words came out measured, as if he had rehearsed that moment several times. "First, to show Miss Morgan and her team that we should never judge people by their appearance. And second, to personally inform you that the Adams Group is cancelling all supply contracts with the Mayfair effective immediately." A murmur ran through the hall like a cold wind announcing a storm. Monica, the decorator, brought her hands to her mouth, shocked. The sommelier closed his eyes tightly as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. Carl, the manager, seemed on the verge of a nervous breakdown. His tie slightly loose, his face red as a beet. "Mr. Adams, please reconsider," he begged, stepping forward. His hands were clasped, almost in prayer. "Tonight's event is crucial for us. All the important food critics will be here, media representatives, celebrities. There are 200 confirmed guests." "What a true shame," replied Samuel with false compassion, irony dripping from each syllable. "Perhaps you should have thought of that before expelling a potential client without even verifying his identity or showing a minimum of courtesy." "Paul," Matthews consulted his wristwatch, a discreet but extremely expensive Patek Philippe, and made a gesture to his assistants. "We have a meeting in 20 minutes, Samuel," he said, adjusting his jacket. "And you, Ms. Morgan, have just lost the opportunity to be part of the largest gastronomic group in the country. Your restaurant will remain as it is." The way Paul pronounced the last words made it clear that it wasn't a compliment, but a sentence. Christine, desperate, made one last attempt, clutching at a thread of hope. "Dr. Matthews, please. We can negotiate. I'm willing to offer a larger percentage of the restaurant, more favorable conditions," and her voice, normally firm and authoritative, now begged. It was like watching a queen kneel before her subjects. "Business isn't just about numbers, Christine," replied Paul seriously. His tone was that of a teacher correcting a student. "It's built on values, respect, and integrity. And what I witnessed here today shows me that we have fundamentally incompatible worldviews." Samuel signaled to his security guards, indicating he was ready to leave. Before turning, he looked one last time at Christine, his eyes reflecting not anger but something deeper and more disturbing: pity. "By the way, I forgot to mention, I'm also the majority shareholder of American Gourmet magazine," he said, referring to the most influential gastronomic publication in the country. "I'm sure our readers will be interested to know how the Mayfair treats customers who don't fit into their standards of excellence." The final blow had been delivered. Christine remained motionless like a pillar of salt as she watched her empire crumble before her eyes. Samuel, Paul, and their respective entourages left the restaurant, leaving behind a sepulchral silence, interrupted only by the distant sound of the kitchen door slamming and someone, probably one of the helpers, dropping a stack of plates. 2 weeks passed. The charity event at the Mayfair had been an unprecedented disaster. With the news of the last-minute cancellation of supplies, the restaurant had to improvise a menu with inferior ingredients, resulting in devastating reviews. The story of the humble farmer who was expelled from the establishment leaked to the press, becoming viral on social networks. An amateur video recorded by one of the clients present during the initial incident showed Christine practically expelling Samuel, with phrases edited to seem even crueler. Mayfair cancelled became one of the most commented topics on Twitter for 3 consecutive days. Digital influencers made videos criticizing the restaurant, some celebrities publicly cancelled their reservations, and even politicians took advantage of the situation to position themselves against the elite that discriminates against working people. Christine observed, desolate, the empty tables of the once crowded restaurant. She was sitting in her office, a room that once represented her power and now seemed like a prison. In 2 weeks, she had lost 15 pounds. Her hair, once impeccably arranged, now showed white strands that she hadn't bothered to dye. The deep dark circles under her eyes betrayed sleepless nights. On her desk, a pile of newspapers and magazines. On the cover of American Gourmet, a special article. Prejudice at the Table. How the Mayfair lost its star. She didn't need to. Read it to know the content. The public humiliation continued day after day. Her cell phone rang. It was her accountant, Roger, with more disastrous news. 3 other important suppliers had cancelled their contracts, following the example of the Adams Group. The restaurant was on the verge of bankruptcy. "Roger, how much time do we have left?" she asked, rubbing her temples, feeling the beginning of another migraine. "A month at most, Ms. Morgan. Reservations have fallen by 90%. We can't cover the fixed costs, and the banks don't want to renew our lines of credit anymore." She hung up without saying goodbye. For years, she had built her reputation as the Iron Lady of high-end New York gastronomy. Now she was just a tarnished name, synonymous with prejudice and arrogance. "It's over, Monica," she said to her assistant, who had remained loyal even with the delays in salaries. The young woman, always so efficient, now looked at her with a mixture of pity and loyalty. "I'll have to close the doors." "Don't say that, Ms. Morgan. Maybe there's still a solution." Monica tried to sound optimistic, but her voice wavered. Anne, employee, knocked on the door, interrupting the conversation. It was the sommelier, one of the few who hadn't yet resigned. "Ms. Morgan, there's someone who wants to speak with you," he announced, with a curious expression on his face, almost reverent. "Who? Another creditor? Or some journalist wanting a statement about our imminent bankruptcy?" she asked, resigned. "No, ma'am, it's Mr. Samuel Adams." Christine's eyes widened, incredulous. What could he want now? Hadn't it been enough to destroy her life? Was he coming to rub salt in the wound? Perhaps take some photos for the press? "Send him in," she said, adjusting herself in the chair and trying to recover a bit of dignity, passing her hands through her disheveled hair. Samuel entered, alone this time. There were no security guards, nor the ostentation of the last visit. He wore a simpler suit, almost casual, and carried a folder of documents under his arm. There was no arrogance in his countenance, only a serene expression, almost compassionate. "Good afternoon, Miss Morgan," he greeted politely. "Have you come to personally verify the ruin you caused?" she replied, with bitterness in her voice. "Or perhaps take some photos for your social media?" Samuel didn't respond immediately. He walked around the office, observing the diplomas and certificates on the walls, the photos of Christine with celebrities and politicians, the awards won over the years. Finally, he turned his gaze to the empty restaurant, visible through the glass that separated the office from the main hall. "No, I came to offer you a job." Christine thought she had heard wrong. Her brain, exhausted from sleepless nights and days of constant worry, must be playing tricks on her. "What did you say?" "A job? In the management of the new restaurant we're opening right here on 5th Avenue, he explained calmly, sitting in the chair in front of her desk without waiting for an invitation. "We bought the building next door, and we're expanding the taste of the country chain." We need someone with experience in New York's high-end gastronomy market. Christine didn't know how to react. Was this some kind of cruel joke, a new form of humiliation? "Why would you do this?" she asked, confused, studying Samuel's face for signs of mockery or falsehood. "After everything that happened, after destroying me publicly." Samuel sighed, leaning back in the chair. There was sincerity in his eyes, something that surprised. "Christine, you know, Ms. Morgan, I grew up hearing my father say that the true greatness of a person isn't in knocking others down, but in giving them the chance to rise again," he explained, with the same calmness as always. "You made a mistake, paid for it, and now deserve the opportunity to start over." Christine felt something strange in her chest, an emotion she hadn't experienced in a long time, gratitude mixed with shame. "I don't need your charity," she replied, though without much conviction. Her pride was still fighting, even though it was in tatters. "It's not charity, it's business," corrected Samuel, placing the folder on the desk and opening it. Inside were projects and floor plans for the new restaurant. "You know the market, have contacts, know how high-end gastronomy works in New York. It would be a waste of talent to let you disappear." He took a card from the inside pocket of his jacket and placed it on the desk. "My personal number. Think about the proposal and call me when you decide. The salary is competitive, with profit sharing after a year." Christine took the card, examining it as if it were a strange object from another world. She was used to giving orders, not receiving them. The idea of working for someone, especially for Samuel, seemed surreal. "I would be your employee?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "You would be my general manager in New York. You wouldn't be directly subordinate to me, but to the director of operations," explained Samuel, closing the folder. "You would have autonomy to assemble your team, within certain parameters, of course." Before Christine could respond, he got up and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. "Oh, and I'll bring Loyal to the office every day. I hope that won't be a problem." An almost imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of Christine's lips. The irony of the situation didn't escape her. "I think I can get used to it," she replied in a low tone. Samuel nodded and left, leaving Christine with her thoughts and the business card on the desk. The most difficult decision of her life was before her. Swallow her pride and accept the extended hand, or sink with her restaurant. 3 weeks later, the restaurant Taste of the Country inaugurated its first unit in New York, occupying an imposing building on Fifth Avenue, just 2 blocks from the now closed Mayfair. The place was full of guests, journalists, and food critics, all eager to get to know the new venture of the Adams Group, which promised to revolutionize high-end gastronomy with organic and sustainable ingredients. At the entrance of the restaurant, Samuel Adams received the guests alongside Paul Matthews and Christine Morgan, now in the position of general manager of the New York unit. Dressed in a discreet but elegant women's suit, Christine seemed a more serene version of herself. Her hair, now with some grey strands that she had chosen not to hide, was tied in a low bun. Her eyes, once always evaluating and critical, now conveyed a calmness that surprised those who knew her. "How do you feel in the new position?" Paul asked Christine, while Samuel conversed with some journalists. The question was genuine, without irony. "Like someone who was given a second chance that they didn't deserve," she replied, with a humility that would have been unthinkable months ago. "I'm still learning not to judge people by their appearance or social position. It's a process." Paul smiled, nodding with approval. Samuel has always seen beyond appearances. That's why he is who he is. When everyone saw just a successful farmer, I saw a visionary who would transform American agribusiness. At that moment, Loyal appeared, walking elegantly among the guests. The dog, completely recovered and healthy, stopped beside Christine, who hesitated for an instant before bending down and stroking his head. "I think he likes you," commented Samuel, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne, offering one to Christine. "Loyal has always been a good judge of character. Even when I found him abandoned by the roadside, he knew he could trust me. I hope to be worthy of the trust of both of you," replied Christine with a sincere smile, accepting the glass. "I have a lot to learn about humility and forgiveness." Samuel. Observed the full restaurant, the waiting line at the door, the smiling faces of the guests, the buzz of approval. The tables, all made of reforested wood, were arranged in a way that created a welcoming and sophisticated environment at the same time. On the walls, paintings by artists from rural America portrayed country life and the beauty of nature. The Ahi menu, a perfect combination of high-end gastronomy with typically American ingredients, all organic and sustainable, was already receiving praise from the critics present. His gaze met Christine's, and both knew that this was a story of redemption. That was only beginning. The woman who had once expelled him from her restaurant was now at his side, as an ally in a new venture. Life, with its infinite wisdom, had given both a lesson and an opportunity. "To a new beginning," he said, raising his glass. "To a new beginning?" she replied with tears in her eyes, finally understanding that true elegance isn't in the clothes we wear or the places we frequent, but in how we treat others, especially those who appear to have less than we do. Loyal, as if understanding the importance of the moment, sat between the two, looking from one to the other with that canine wisdom that seems to see beyond appearances, beyond social masks, directly to the hearts of people. Dear listeners, we hope that Samuel and Christine's journey has touched your hearts. This story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving and that true character is revealed in actions, not in clothes or material possessions. To continue this emotional experience, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here by clicking on the link to your left. If this narrative awakened something in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on this video. Daily, we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and teach us valuable life lessons. Share in the comments which moment of the story touched your heart the most. Was it Samuel's initial humiliation, the surprising twist, or perhaps the final gesture of forgiveness that demonstrated his true greatness? We eagerly await your impressions and will meet you tomorrow with a new story that will certainly move and transform your day.